Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, that just brings you some background concerning what is going on. But we're joined now by Alhaji Mohammed, the National Publicity Secretary of the APC. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Tell us, what really is going on about this certificate matter?
I think for me it's a dead issue, buried, a needless distraction. And I hope we can move forward. It's a pity that Nigerians have been entertained and distracted over a non-issue completely. I've seen many senior advocates of Nigeria disgrace themselves here. I've seen many pundits, I've seen many pseudo-analysts come here to disgrace themselves. Unfortunately, the biggest casualty in this whole matter is probably the Nigerian military. Why do I say this? What does the Constitution say about qualification to run for office? It never says secondary school certificate in the first instance. The Constitution is very clear. It says secondary school certificate or its equivalent. And in its equivalent, it explained it could be grade 2 certificate, grade 2 teacher certificate. It could be primary school certificate with 10 years experience in the private or public sector. So all those who came here and were insisting on secondary school certificate were just misleading, and the people were very, very mischievous. Having said this, does a person's educational advancement stop the moment he enters the military? Let's concede, without admitting, that General Buhari even never had a school certificate. Of course, that has been proven beyond doubt that he did have. He entered the Nigerian military school, it was then called, sat for the examination, and was admitted as a cadet in training, officer in training. From there, he went to Mons College in Aldershot. Was commissioned into the Nigerian Army as a second lieutenant. From there, he attended courses in Staff College in India, in War College in the US. Has that person not elevated himself over and above the school certificate level? But you see, why do I say that the military is the worst casualty? It's because they allow themselves to be drawn into politics. Because it's annoying and sad that the same day General Brigadier Lalaye was giving this press conference, that same day another arm of the military was sending and dispatching General Buhari his entire records. And what is instructive here is that in the letter they wrote, they admitted that in the 60s, it was not their practice to keep copies of certificates of any officer. And that was one thing Bilalaye refused to tell Nigerians. Rather, he went to say that there's no evidence that those who entered the army in the 60s had their certificates verified. Okay,
but I thought the affidavit that General Buhari submitted said that his records are with the army.
What are records? Records are your certificates, the trainings you have attended, the recommendations you have had. Those are records.
No, with respect to the required relevant documents for the office of the president, as stipulated in the Constitution, which you cited.
Look, and
if
I
it has
said,
to do with the primary school.
Yes, primary school certificate, yes.
So it wasn't what the army was trying to clarify when they said, well, we don't have copies of that particular record.
No. The army said we do not have a copy of his West African school certificate. But I'm saying the same army wrote in the letter that at the time he joined the army in the 60s, it was not the practice to keep copies of the academic, certificates of their soldiers, of the officers. Wouldn't that have cleared the entire controversy?
But General Buhari would know that in the sense that he also occupied that post, as he rightly pointed out. He was secretary to the military board at some point in his career.
Yes.
He would have known that in the 60s.
He was secretary to the military in what year? In the 80s. And he would know what happened in the 60s. I don't know how old some of us are, but I can tell you that I would not know where I kept my certificate if it was 53 years ago. But why can't the army be honest? Why can't the army, be truthful?
And tell,
no, sir, it's very important.
Something here, because what I don't get from you is that you said while General Lale was out there talking to the press,
yes.
the Nigerian army had written General Buhari.
The same day, yes.
Same day?
Yes. Yes. You see, what happened? I think it must have been on a Sunday. Actually, it was actually on a Sunday. We had a meeting at the campaign, council, and we said, "Sir, we must put this matter to rest." And General Buhari is very forthright. We said it's needless controversy, and I actually don't think there's any need to even answer them. However, to stop the controversy, I'm going to ask my own chief of staff to write a letter to the Chief of Army Staff directing the Army Secretary to release my records. That record was that letter was written on the 15th of January. And on the same Tuesday, when Brigadier Lalaye was addressing the press conference, I know that the Military Secretary Department was sending this record.
So why didn't they mention that in the conference?
Because it didn't even get to them. That was Wednesday. Buhari was in Kano on Tuesday. He had the press conference yesterday morning in Kano. This record was released on Tuesday. We did not receive it. But for Premium Times, how would it have known? And Premium Times, downloaded everything, what was written in the report, and what caught my attention most was the statement that in the 60s, the army was not in the practice of keeping the records of the officers.
But I've had military persons, even retired ones, say that they have Army Records Office in Lokoja. And they have records of Army officers in the 50s and the 60s, even those who served in Burma, Ethiopia. Their documents are all in Army records.
So, I don't think you get what I'm saying. Nobody says Army records do not exist. I said the military said they were not in the practice of keeping certificates.
Even photocopies.
Even photocopies.
Even in their files.
In the files, yes. I didn't write that letter. The Army Secretary wrote that letter. I didn't write it.
So how then do you think that the army has been drawn into politics here? Because here they are. They say that they've had to also put to rest people writing the military board or writing the military to get certificates of, General Muhammad Buhari.
The army has dragged itself into politics in two respects. One, I will expect the army to know that no matter what entry qualification a person brought into the army, that he attended several courses, equivalent of diplomas at the least, was enough to tell the world that this person has a minimum qualification to contest, which is not even a secondary school certificate. Two, why wouldn't the military be, or in particular, why wouldn't Brigadier Lalaye tell the whole story and tell the world that in the 60s, the army was not in the habit of keeping certificates of its officers. And thirdly, why would one branch of the army be saying one thing and the other branch be doing another thing? Or didn't Brigadier Lalaye know at that point when he was giving the press conference that the Military Secretary Department was dispatching the records to General Buhari?
But I don't think there is anything that he said that has favored any party here. If we're writing, or whoever it is that is writing to the military board for copies of the certificates, and perhaps they have been inundated by this, requests, and the army is saying, I'm sorry, but we don't have these copies. This and this is what we have.
Yeah.
And they leave it at that.
No.
How has that become political?
I think you don't understand the point I'm making, which is, if truly in the 60s it was not in the practice of the army to keep certificates of their officers, and the army had said, this is what we have in our records. As a matter of fact, in the 60s, we never kept copies of certificates, academic records of our officers. Then the insinuation that General Buhari did not have a school certificate would not even have arisen at all. That omission in particular actually cast doubt on the integrity of the general. That, you see, you can't have in your records what you never kept there.